So Bitcoin's taking it up the ass right now. What a surprise after all the recent announcement that just came out over the weekend about the European tariffs, Europeans pulling out their biggest moves, Trump, Greenland, whatever the fuck else is going on. But look where we bounced from, off the previous 8-week value area high. I started calling in December that this was going to happen. They were going to run stops both ways, that a 10K swing was coming up. It did. Like, let's go. Where's December 19th? Let's go to a candle start chart. There's December 19th, right here, 85,000. We pushed up to 98. That's at least 10K. I said stops again. It ran both ways. Same wallets are doing it. Justin Sun, he was bidding on Tron. Braxis and Bitfinex are moving around. I mean, we knew this pump was coming. I even said it's probably up before down, and I said we're probably gonna go up and do the retest, right? Let's look at the 90. Let's look at the 365 and the 200. So what did we do? We flipped the 90. We kind of got close to the 365. I guess real quick while we're here, I'll just change this to 7-day. The trend flipped from the 7-day and pushed up, and now it's fighting to hold under it as well as reclaim it above. So, yeah, I mean, this is no real surprise, right? But I guess what we'll do, since we're here, I'm not going to talk about the altcoins because you just got to let them do their shit. What matters is what Bitcoin's going to do. But what do we see? Rejection off this multi-day composite that's been building out since Wednesday, right? Right here, we can see it. A little bit of a hold and fail and a break below, right? And where do we target? On the higher time frame, we had our 8-week value area high here marked, right? So we can combine this now. Let's see. There we have it, right? Failure to hold the point of control, break below, right? Right down to the 8-week value high. Now we're looking to kind of target this 30-day VWAP here and reclaim the 90 again. So in the zone, you do nothing. You're either short from up here on your scalp or long from down here still. Yeah, I mean, that's all I can really say for that. But it's that time of the cycle, guys, and I said that. We're going to dive into this a little bit more here. But real quick, let's just take a look at the weekly on the TPO perspective. So we finally closed above the previous multi-week composite, right? Finally got a close, and now we're retesting the height of it. So now we need to see if this is just going to be some look above and fail consolidation, or look above, consolidate, hold above, and move higher, right? I can't really call it what the trade is going to be here, but I think I know what the trade here is going to be. And I said going into the week of January 23rd to February, what did I say? January 23rd to February 23rd? I think that's what I said. But we're going into the week of January 23rd, and we're seeing some volatility. And I honestly do think the top is in by January 23rd, if not right around that date. I would say no more than 2 weeks from now, top is in. Or at least the lower high would be in, right? Because top's already in. We kind of, okay. But you know what I'm trying to say, right? That's all I can say. There's nothing really here to mark. I guess what we can do actually is we can mark a new line here. There we go. So that's all we can do. So there's our previous yearly open, our previous multi-week composite range. We have to watch this because if we get break below back into here and then we do something like this and go down off this point of control, that's not going to be good. Right, but let's talk about why I'm still so bearish. All right, we're going to get off TPO for a bit here, and let's move over to, I guess we'll go to this chart. This chart works. We're going to turn off our VWAPs. So, what do we see here, right? We kind of opened this week right kind of like inside of this previous week's bar, right? We didn't really close or open back into this big wick here. We're closing and opening right kind of at this exact, what do we call this? Like, see what I mean? That makes sense? So I'm looking at this, and we know that historically it's usually about 20 weeks of consolidation, right? But it could be earlier this time. Doesn't mean it has to be the exact same. But yeah, we're partway through it, right? Now I want to talk about the SMAs here. The 21 and 52 are about to cross. In fact, that looks like, oh God, what am I doing? It's close. It's very close. Very close. So I think by the end of this week, the move will probably be done. If it's not this week, it's probably the next. And it's just time. It's time. We've talked about volatility metrics, but I mean, even when you look, when the 52 and 21 cross, you know, usually it's a quick blip to 98, or sorry, quick blip to the 365 VWAP, or when that cross happens, it's done, right? Like it kind of changes every cycle, but usually it crosses and it happens, or it does a quick wick above and then down. So I think it's very close, very close. If it's not already in, it's very close. Remember, every cycle is slightly different, but I mean, I've been pretty transparent about watching, you know, to take profits and check your scalps and maybe build a hedge. What's interesting, Bitfinex is still twapping a little bit as of right now. As of right now, the twap is begun again. And I'm going to show you guys that in a second. All right. But there's nothing much to say. Like, we know it's close, and this happens every cycle, guys. It's never different. Okay. But let's take a look at Bitfinex longs. Okay. So what am I seeing here? Let's go down to the daily. Remember, when we're about to pump, it usually sells right off. But what are we getting here? A little bit of curvature. A little bit of curvature in here. And that would be very similar to back here in 2022. Remember when a bunch of people thought that the low for Bitcoin was in back here? I remember this like night and day. Remember this? Where everyone thought that, okay, Bitfinex is reversing. Look, this is going to be our new high. And then it curved. And then we sold off more, right? And as I explained before, when Bitfinex swaps longs, means they want price lower and they're building longs as a hedge, right? So, how I knew this was probably coming up too, is we pull up this awesome indicator here. I could tell beforehand that this pump was probably going to be a big fake out, because you can see here that this ratio, when it was coming down here, is starting to slowly curve around. You can actually see the red line is already curved up, right? This script is great. If you guys want to read up on it more, just check out the source code for it. You can dive into it. If you guys want to pause it and read it, by all means, do it. But, yeah, these crosses at the bottom here are very, very important when you look into it. But what I'm seeing here is ahead of time, and I tweeted this out a couple guys on Twitter, is I knew that this was going to change. And I knew it. And I knew we were in the scam pump phase. And honestly, maybe we get one more scam pump. I don't know. But it's starting to seem, with all the bullshit coming out, that everyone's starting to get exhausted and go, all right, man, I don't know about this so far. Oh, and speak of the devil, we might be going back down to that previous week composite right now because we're floating around 92K. So, it's never different. It's never different. We got this guy trying to start World War III, invade Greenland. We got Europe getting pissed off. Maybe he's taking a defensive stance. And maybe we'll read into that when we go look at the SPX in a second. But, I mean, it's never going to be different. It's never going to be different. The only thing I would say I was a little bit wrong to call, which I actually will call back to, I guess we'll go to this chart to look at it. I thought USDT dominance was going to make at least a run up to the band here. But you can visibly see that stablecoins, they were retreating. They were retreating, which means that's weakness. People are fledging back into stables on the pump. Right? So I thought maybe we'd get a little pump higher. But I mean, guys, like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. This was the whole cycle. This is nearly, I mean, March 24th. This is about a year and a half of hitting the same line on USDT dominance when the market actually made new highs that we didn't break out of. And we just stopped here. So, I don't know. Wow, it's getting real volatile. It's doing like $500 price swings. Anyways, that's all you can say, though. It's like if you look at it on the daily, you can see that people were retreating again back into stables. Right? So, what else do you want to look at here? I mean, total 3. Let's look at total 3. Right? You know how many people were saying, oh, altcoins look great here. They look undervalued. BTC's pumping. They haven't pumped yet. Guys, this happens every fucking cycle. Every fucking cycle. All you guys need to do, everyone, even the big retail traders, like, why buy an alt? You are 10 points away from going back to 0.25. And honestly, when you get here, I guarantee the box where it bottoms out at, it's probably going to fill a... So let's say this wick here wasn't fully filled. Like, let's say this down here needs to be revisited. Let's say we come down here, I don't know, sometime in the fourth quarter this year and did a Q1 of next year. All right. let's go to 0.25 here. Let's say it checks in. It's probably going to do some sort of sweep. So I think if it was to bottom, it would at least sweep some of this. It would at least tap 0.25. I want to be specific here. I don't think 0.25 is the exact low. I think it tests this range for sure, but I don't think it's just going to stop there and revert. I think it's going to come and consolidate in the lower band of that. And just to add to that real quick, the reason I say that is let's just take a look at ETH. And where's the Ethereum logarithmic regression? Do I have it enabled? I do. Actually, before we look at this, just on ETH. So the green line from the low, like on this view app, it's just consolidating here. It's looking above, but it hasn't breached higher into the all-time, or the highs. Oh my God. So the high view app here, like we haven't even came out and tested the level. We've just kind of been looking above the lower thing here. But the view app is starting to cross below in here, which isn't good, which means value might shift lower, if that makes sense, right? So real quick here, how many times we rejected 4,000? It was, what? I guess I can move this line a little lower. But it was at least 3 times, right? Before finally moving up a little bit. But if we think about it, this wasn't even like a really strong new all-time high. It just swept the previous high from 4 to 5 years ago, this cycle, right? This is not an alt season. This is not an alt season by any means. And I don't know why people on Twitter were saying you guys got an alt season. Guys, failing to break out and just sweeping a high, that's not alt season, okay? Like, an alt season is when you fly up like this, when you blast past the previous all-time high, right? Like this is an alt season where, let's say there was this high here. This is your alt season. This is your alt season where you're blasting to new highs. You're not triple topping out over the course of a fucking year, right? And barely sweeping a high from 5 years ago. Like this is not alt season. I don't know why people say it was, right? And again, this goes back to the 0.25 thing on Total 3. Like alts were never bottom. They were never going to crazy new all-time highs. Same thing with Solana. I know I have this big ass fucking line here. But, I mean, look. All it did was either reject or sweep or reject. This is not a huge brigade bolt upwards to a new high by any means. I don't know why people were so bullish on this shit. Like, there's alts right now are nuking. Okay, and same thing with hype. People are saying 25 hype is the floor. Are you guys out of your fucking mind? Okay, with all the war on DeFi projects right now, more or less the perp meta, where there's Lighter, there's Aster protocol. I don't even know if it is. All that bullshit, like, you don't touch that. That's just scam stuff. That's liquidity drain. Like, you stick with the main sexes to trade perps on, or Hyperliquid. Like, that's it. You don't touch random junk. Okay? But why would alts be bottomed, guys, if Bitcoin is going to go through a bear market? How would alts be bottomed up here? Why would you buy here when you're just going to get a discount in the future? Like, this is where patience and smart capital waits to deploy. Like, you wait, you be patient, you time your entries. Why would you hedge up here with overvalued assets, especially in a stock market that showed exhaustion for 5 months? For 5 months, we've been within a $14,000 range, or sorry, 14-point range of reaching 7,000 in the SPX, and no one's been a buyer or held or pushed through that at all. No capital has done it, and there's huge clusters above there, which we're going to go into. But how can you look at this? And I've explained this metric before, but how do you look at this? Let me turn off some of this. Sorry, hold on. How do you look at this when ETH every time does this, where it comes down to the blue, pumps a little bit above, and then comes back down to the lower end of the band before failing to break out and sweeping it? Look at this. Every time it happens, it checks in on the top of the band, pumps above, goes down to the bottom of the band. Every time. Actually, is there an ETH chart with more data that I can go further back on? Wait, what one's bigger? This one's bigger. Here we go. Look. Every time it does it, it goes into the band. Let's check it. Goes into the band, fails to break above or like hold above, and then goes to the lower end of the band. Say, like, every time it does this. And like, what metric was flashing to you guys that we were pushing above to like some crazy new all-time high. I don't care that Tom Lee's buying a bunch of shit. You guys notice how Tom Lee is buying so much shit and yet prices barely fucking moved and gone up? If that is not like the most obvious sign of there is no demand, I don't know what is. One guy, this goes for Sailor too, one guy can't lift these fucking coins. So yeah, we're probably going to do the same thing we've always done with ETH and look above a little bit and then go to the bottom of the band. So where the bottom of the band comes into, I don't know. It looks like it's going to curve out and come into somewhere around this area, around 1400. I'll be honest, I bet you get a sweep again where they flush a bunch of shorts, whatever. I think Ethereum Foundation's positions down there as well. Sorry, longs, not shorts down there. What am I saying? But, God, I gotta get better at this. I guarantee you, come down here, and you probably do some wick below 1,000. If I had to guess, I mean, like, really, it happens every cycle. Where, again, just it checks in, fails to break out, and sweeps below the log band. And I think Ben Cowan's right about this. I know a lot of people hate on Ben Cowan. That guy is better than 98% of you traders. I swear to God. He gets the odd call wrong. We all do. But that guy, from terms of being patient or just looking at actual metrics to show like why things consolidate or why things don't break out or why things happen, like it's never going to be different until it is. And again, this plays in the thing of like what I said in the one video where I was crashing out is retail takes narratives like, oh, spot ETF, big boys are buying, banks are buying. And it's like, guys, you have people building treasury hedges and shit. Okay, but like as an asset matures over time, especially for something like Bitcoin, you're not going to get those 1,500% rallies like you do every cycle. Remember like how like you get these where you go from $193 to 21 grand, or you go from 3,000 up to 69,000. As an asset matures and grows over time, doesn't matter who the fuck buys. Doesn't matter if fucking Bill Gates is buying or Michael Saylor, whoever. Like, you have to see true demand from everybody, not just a couple guys. Okay, like for example, we all know this. Social interest from retail never returned. It's been primarily leverage and perp driven. There's barely been spot demand. And every time we were pushing up or going through these ranges, even here, big OG whales were selling off. Now, I don't know how you guys want to take this, but I will take it this way. I think if big OG whales are selling off and price is failing to keep climbing higher and it's going through longer consolidation periods with less large moves to the upside, to me that sounds like demand isn't there. And to me that sounds like you're going to go through periods of drawdown, periods of loss, or, hear me out, longer consolidation periods where price isn't going to move much. The demand is not there. It hasn't been there. Okay? Had you guys just drawn one of these metrics here, you guys probably would have known that top was coming in April 6th. Now, we could talk about 10-10 alt liquidations, and I posted my theory about why that happened the other day as well. But I think the top being in is one thing, but I think 10-10 and market makers just taking on dead altcoins goes to show you that you should probably only buy the big two or the big three. And by that, I mean, like, you buy Bitcoin and ETH only. You don't buy bullshit like Render and AVAX and Sand Token and Poopcoin and Fartcoin. Like, you don't buy that. You stick with Bitcoin and you stick with ETH. Right? Because now all these market makers just have a bunch of dead altcoins that have no value to them. Now, they probably sold, like, the Sexes probably sold them off and got, you know, good bucks for them by nuking them. But in the end, it just goes to show that since there's no demand for any of that shit, and that ETH and BTC being, like, pretty much the only thing you should be buying, like, to me, that just signals that, one, smart money and retail doesn't want to step into the space and buy these fucking things. And two, regardless of those altcoins doing their things or not, like, had you just drawn a line from last cycle, like, look at this. Do you guys remember when we bottomed off this? There was your first top, and there was your bottom, right? You could have used basically, like, just a couple lines to top this whole cycle off. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Like, no one was buying here. Okay, this is a trend line that goes all the way back to 2017. What do you see? When we reject off this, we go down for a bit. When we flip it, we push up. When we break below, we go to a bear market. When we hold above, we push up. When we break below, we go lower. When we hold above it, we go up. When we break below it, we go down. This whole cycle up, this OG ass trend line. I don't believe in trend line trading. I don't think it tells you much. I think honestly a lot of it's bullshit. But this is just my old schizo chart that I used to check in with from time to time. The entire time up, this 2017 trend line, we rejected right off of it here. We rejected right off it a second time. And we failed to even come and retest it again on the last try this cycle. So to me, that sounds like there's no demand. And mind you, every time we have flipped it has been either upside or downside, regardless of where we're at in the cycle. So I think Ben Cowan is right on terms of we've topped on apathy, just like the demand hasn't been there. We can even look from this cycle here where it showed the initial top when Trump got inaugurated and then up to now, which is a whole year later pretty much. Right? You could have basically used 3 trend lines to call this whole fucking cycle. And then the OG top lines where you connect tops and then it marks the day. Because look, the blue one lined up right there on October 6th, the week of October 6th. So what I'm curious to see now, though, is what happens in April. Because if we go from here and we show where the SMA crossings were, I have to switch to this chart here. Do you guys remember this chart? So if we look at like something like the 52, okay, so hold on. So our 200 week, that has historically always marked a cycle top when that crosses, like when the 200 week crosses the previous all-time high. I want to see what happens here, because when this happened last cycle, when the 200 week crossed the previous high, it actually was delayed where prices already went down. So I want to see what happens with this, with that green line, is what happens in April, because that's where this green line is. It's from that cross period. So I want to see what happens. That would be the week of April 7th. I want to see if that marks a low or marks another high. I really want to see what happens, right? Because there's an old theory in the mid-election years where it's sell in May and go away. So are we going to get like a bottom in April and a pump up in May and then sell off through the middle end of the year? And I've said this. I think we get a pump into the middle of the year, maybe even Q3. I don't know. I'll have to see what's flashing at that time, right? But I think people are just fucking foolish, especially all the big influencers, to be calling a why like this was going to be some crazy cycle. And like usually the crazy cycle happens after this one. Where like if you guys remember how good memes were back in the Binance era, like last cycle, well, there are a lot of big memes that ran on Solana this cycle. And I would argue that this cycle was more meme influenced, like with Pump Fun and stuff, right? But it's always that thing of like when you price something in, it's usually the next cycle that happens. So I think we get better adoption and more interest next cycle. Right? I don't think it's this cycle. I think this cycle it's going to fall short in terms of euphoria, right? And the whole topping on apathy argument again. Yeah, I don't know. I just it's a Republican cycle. And regardless if price went up a lot, which by the way, I don't know why people are bitching that we didn't get euphoria. Guys, the fucking cycle did 700%. What asset does 700% in what, 2 years, roughly? Roughly 2 years? Like, how could you be disappointed at those returns? And again, like as an asset grows over time, more liquidity flows in and out of it, like you just can't like undermine that. Like what? Are we gonna 1 year go to 500K and then only get a 3x return, and people are gonna be mad that Bitcoin went to 1.5 million? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm being a Karen, okay? But I just don't understand why, like, people are so lined with, oh, this has to be bullish. We should all be buying here. But no big, like, buyers are stepping in. Like, all the metrics that you see on Twitter, like, I've seen maybe 1 or 2 people get it right, or accounts, whatever. But there's been no spot demand. The ETF flows, it's just capital rotating in and out. They're not buying new Bitcoin or new ETH. They're just taking whatever the exchange has and withdrawing it to that wallet to hold. Until there is a surplus in demand, nothing's going to happen. There's going to be no euphoria. And it's been that way. So, listen, if you want to cry and be mad that you didn't get some crazy $300,000 rally, be my guest. We should not have been focusing on memes. The president should not be on chain extracting from the space. And by the way, Coinbase just pulled out of supporting that whole act anyways. So I like Coinbase. I think Brian's a fucking Jew. But listen, if you're going to come in and be a bankrupt, rapist, trafficking fucking loser and try and fuck with OGs in this space who have been here for reasons unlike your own. Okay, why would we pump in a cycle like to some crazy euphoria when Bitcoin's whole thing is to be like decentralized, to get away from banks, to like hedge against the dollar, blah blah. Why would we fucking pump through a cycle when the assets like grounding is based off the opposite of a guy who wants to commit bankruptcy and felonies multiple times and come in and start a thing called World Liberty Fine Trump Coin to extract liquidity from people? In what world, like, do people think that these big OGs and big whales, whoever, big players, are gonna just like let that fly? I think that's what it is. I think without rugging people in terms of Bitcoin, I think they just let it kind of consolidate and do its thing in a slow and like organized manner. I do. And listen, again, I'm not political. I guess I got political there, but like Democratic cycles always outperform Republican. Republican cycles always undermine. So I think that's what people are just like fixed on, is that they didn't see this crazy upside. But again, guys, remember, like, there's bigger players in the space who aren't gonna let that shit fly. And I think at some point we are destined for a lot lower. I mean, as long as we don't lose the 100, which I think we're going to very soon. Where's it floating at? 100's at 80. We're going to call it 86K. Remember, guys, whenever you lose an SMA, it always goes down to the next one. I think when people get spooked and we wipe out a lot more of this cycle's gains and we come down to the 200 SMA or the 300, which historically we always bottom at the 300, right? I think people are just going to be surprised. And it'll be the first time where Bitcoin doesn't bounce off its previous all-time high. Like, you see how it kind of always, or at least in recent years, it kind of always bounces off the previous all-time high. I think this is going to be the first cycle for both markets, for both the SPX and Bitcoin. I think with how we printed money in 2020 and whatnot, with COVID and whatnot, I think it's going to be the first time in years, this is a very bold call, but I think this is possible, where the market doesn't bounce off its previous all-time high. And I think we're going a lot lower than people expect. And look at something like USDT dominance. I gotta turn off this shit, it's gonna look too schizophrenic. But you would have to push to 9 to 10%. And if you do a calculation, just fire up Gemini Pro or something. Don't use shitty chat GPT or something. I think you go down to 9 to 10% at least in USDT dominance. And that's a big correction. That's big. If you think about that, if you do the calculation on it, that's at least 40 to 50,000 BTC. I don't think we're going back to like 20K. Like, I think that's just way too much. Honestly, if I think we went to 20K, it would be all over. But I think, and the reason why you've seen so many big OG whales sell off is because they know that's happening. But when that happens and it goes through a consolidation period, that is going to be your best time to buy and hedge. Right? Right? And maybe we do actually get a crazy euphoric cycle. Because if we can go back to 0.25 on alts and Bitcoin gets a big sweep lower or whatnot, I actually think you will see some pretty crazy upside. I mean that. Like, I actually do think you would see some crazy upside. Like, I think you would go from 40 or 50K and probably target at least 200 or 300,000 as long as spot demand comes in and retail returns. I think it's bullish once we get framework and legal work once that actually comes through, regardless if it's support for some of it's being pulled right now. The only thing I can see where we take a big backfire is if the Democratic Party comes in and runs through crypto again and opens a lot of old cases and whatnot and charges a bunch of people, which I'd almost be kind of surprised about, because in 2008 they charged literally one guy and that was it. They let everyone else walk away from the whole crisis. totally jail free. So I don't know. You kind of just have to wait and see. But I don't know. Anyways, I'll stop rambling about this. But I think all you got to do is watch the 365 and watch when we lose the 100 week, because our 21 is about to cross. We know how that goes every cycle. So that's enough me rambling, whatnot. Let's go talk about the SPX. SPX on a weekly closed on, I mean, I don't know what you call that, a doji, a butterfly, hanging man, I don't know what you call that. It doesn't really matter. But that's an undecided candle, and sure enough, we're opening a lot lower. Right? This is futures right now, so obviously it's going to be a little bit forward thinking compared to the normal SPX. Nasdaq's down. Let's go look at the gap here. It's a pretty thick gap down, boys. Pretty thick gap down here. So a couple 100 points for sure, and this can always change by Tuesday. Let's talk about the last bit of January positioning here. So we closed at 60.40 the other day, right? I posted this image on Twitter a little bit ago. So this line here, I can't really tell what it is. It's about 60.20, it looks like. It's about 60.20. If the SPX opens under that and sells off, start targeting closer to 68.50, it looks like. But you want to be watching these big orange nodes here, because remember, at these orange nodes, it's support, but if you break below it, the selling's accelerated as dealers head short, right? Not much to say. 7,000 is such massive resistance, guys. Like, everything through there is huge resistance. Again, this is why I don't understand people are confused on why we aren't topped. You would have to push through all these these blue gamma clusters on the right and flip that to exceed higher, and then you would start targeting another large node for resistance, right? Look, you have one huge line here right at 7,000. It's actually just below 7,000. And another one like just above 7,000, and a bunch above 7,000. I said this last year. That we probably weren't seeing 7,000 last year, and we didn't. And guys, we have been basically topped. Okay, let's say the first drop was in October, okay? From the top of this drop to even the high now, 200 points. Okay, but let's go to the most recent high before the all-time high from last year. Guys, 65 points over the course of 80 days, roughly. And we were within 14 points of 7,000 at one point, and we still haven't got there. Or even if we want to look at this a different way, let's look at it like maybe even this way, is where this first drop was to where we are today. Almost 100 days, and we still didn't break 7,000. And if we look at this from a view-out perspective, I mean, we got a good reaction off the previous, so this white one's anchored off the previous high in 2025. That's the highest high in 2025 we got. Good reaction off of it. But again, the all-time high view gap, holding under it, closing below the middle of it, and checking out the top of it, and not breaking out of it. And like, I've been saying that the top was very, very close if it wasn't already in for quite some time. And people kept telling me I was retarded. But guys, you're in this huge consolidation period here where nothing is happening. So I'm pretty confident that we're just going to get some sort of look above and fail. Maybe we go and tap 7,000 before going down. At this point, I think it would have done it already. So I'm thinking we're just going to get this before continuation lower. I think we're going to come and test this, and there might be a slight reaction off of it. But with how gamma's looking, I think when you come down to that, if you, oh my god, like if you lose the 68.20 and you push through these, you would start targeting down here, closer to 5,800. That's your biggest node that you could probably bounce from. If you lose that, down here towards 5,500. And I think I said this in the other video, I think it was 5,500 to 5,800 is where I expected the market to go through a consolidation period at, or bottom if it hasn't already. So that's all I want to say. Like, and then from a CSEO reading, it's the highest reading we got since 2024. Look, since 2024, that's the highest reading we got. And I posted about this in our last video, I think. Oh my god, I'm coming on the screen. fuck? But look, breadth was so strong trying to push through this, guys, and we didn't even break out. And now it's on the downtrend again. And CSEO is showing exhaustion. I don't know, man. Like, I don't even have trade setups here. I've been saying this. I'm so hedged on the downside for both the VIX and puts into Q1. Like, the pain trade is up. Like, the trade up is the more difficult trade. Like, we're due for some consolidation lower. And to talk about something else here, 10-year by 2 has not cooled off at all. Still up the 0.65 range, and we all know what happens at the 0.65 range. Oh, wrong chart. Right? How about this? How about the 2-year, which tells the Fed what to do? Going through a multi-month period range of consolidation, and now looking to break out higher potentially if it breaks this line downwards. And futures for yields are actually up. Could you imagine? So the 10-year by like the 2-year yield when it goes up or down shows hikes or cuts of what the Fed is supposed to do, right? Can you imagine if this perked higher and broke out, and the Fed was forced to raise rates because we have Donald Dumbfuck here doing stupid shit? 30-year reaction higher, still pretty good. 10-year, 10-year. That's a pretty good spike up, man. Long consolidation period and a good spike up. So I'm curious to see what these numbers are when the market opens on Tuesday, because Monday's a holiday. And I don't think it's going to be good. I don't even want to talk about more. Like, that's all I want to share. I mean, correlation index, we knew this was coming. Remember, guys, whenever it reverses or when it hits these crazy lows, that's how you know we're in for some volatility. IV itself on options is the lowest it's been, and people are the most hedged on VIX shorts they've ever been. And we know what happens every time that happens, is there's some crazy vol spike, and vol gets very sensitive fucking fast. VIX closing above the green line. Again, VVIX still above the 100 mark. So, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say. I really don't. Like, if we're not lower by March, maybe April, and I think it'll start happening in February, I'll just delete the channel. Because it's so time. Listen, like, I don't know, even the XLF with how good earnings were, it's lower, and that's been carrying the weight of the S&P. Like we even closed on a lower candle here. Oil doing just whatever. Gold though, still making new highs. Silver still making new highs. Bitcoin can't catch a bid. Stocks looking weird. Let's look at the scary chart. SPX divided by gold. Oh, the #1 market crash indicator is now below the line. I actually didn't even know this. There you guys go. So, listen, I don't know if we crash tomorrow, I don't know if it's a week from now, whatever, but I know the big correction, or at least it's a good one, is coming in soon. Whether it's a full-fledged crash or just a little correction, whatever. But it's time. People are pissed. People want to take profits. We'll see if this is just a fake wick below or a continuation. Okay, so you guys think this chart's scary? The SPX divided by gold, right? Yeah, why don't we look at, like, I don't know, SPX divided by M2, right? How funny would it be if it did a crazy double top like it did in the from the 2000s, and now we did some crazy double top, right? You guys want to see another crazy thing? Okay, where was that? Did I say something crazy? You guys really want to start pissing out your fucking asses? Hold on. Remember this top of the week of October 8th in 07. What happened on our biggest red day in a while? That was straight down, no stoppage. October 9th and 10th. And what was going on? Remember that whole double top that the 2008s did a crazy large double top, right? And we know 2000s was like a whole emerging tech thing, right? You guys remember this? You guys remember this? Right? Whole trade, or it was all tech based and real estate and the housing thing crashed, right? How funny would it be if the top of 2008 sent a warning going into this whole AI tech trade cycle? And like this was your warning. Let's say the market makers and big funds were like, yeah, let's send a warning out, right? Let's just remember this date, right? Remember this. This is kind of irrelevant because it's not an all-time high or something, but it's very funny that the exact date of this, that the 2008 top sent a little downward side day crash, whatever you want to call it. It's a little fucking minor, 2% blip, whatever this was. But I think there is some significant to that because like you notice how like some patterns, like if you look at years where healthcare did well or banks did well or tech did well, like a lot of times if you literally just look at those forecast pattern years, a lot of time you can make some predictable trades just off what was happening and you like put it into your current year forecast. And I think like low key as conspiritual as that is, I think it was a warning. And I said this before, I thought it was weird that JP Morgan striked the top of the collar so low. I was looking at gamma and future volatility and VIX futures and whatnot and saying, I don't know. And even if we look at like VIX Central, I mean, I'm just saying, your front month vol is looking weird, right? And we know like implied vol is getting low. Haven't seen near dated IVs averages. This is low since July of 2024. Remember what happened then? Remember what happened then? You guys remember July 2024? Right? That was a pretty good mini Volmageddon back there. Right? It was a pretty good Volmageddon kind of downtrend, right? So this is all really funny, right? Now I'm going to make another bold prediction. You guys remember COVID? How we started printing money and shit, right? 2020 would be at the 2100 range. Okay, so let me target more or less the top. We'll say the top of 2020 because I don't think it would go back to 2000 personally. But let's say so we bounced off this high here off the Terraflow. Okay, what if we came back here? Remember when this whole tech trade kind of like really ramped up? Was like right here in 2020. Let's say this high here. And let's just make a crazy bold prediction here. I don't think this actually happens, but I just want to make it just in case it does, just to, I don't know. But let's say, so you remember when this happened here? Let's say at some point, if we were to go through a full-on crazy full-fledged bear going into the early 2030s, if we were to go through a full-fledged bear going into the early 2030s, I mean, look, we're basically at the top of the 100-year chart. There's a little bit more to go, but I wouldn't be surprised if we fell short, right? And every time this is hit, it's bottom, 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 bottom. Every time this has happened, right? What if the S&P kind of had a relic of that 2000s kind of tech wipeout era where it wiped out all the gains again from the AI trade? And sometime in, early 2030s, we hit a crazy bottom. I don't think this happens. I just want to point that out. I actually don't think this happens. I think markets move too fast nowadays. They're too different. Whatever. I do think at some point U.S. markets go through a big fuck up. I don't know how deep that correction goes. It could go this low. I don't know. I really don't. I'm not saying it has to. I just think it would be funny. Right? Well, actually, in the long scope of things, it wouldn't be funny. I think it'd be funny to call this out, but I don't actually think the result of it would be funny. And the reason I say that is if you guys are paying attention on Twitter to all the OpenAI shit. So I was fucking around with Gemini here, just talking about stuff. I like Gemini and Claude way better than ChatGPT. But I was going through just like OpenAI stuff and feeding this thing statistics and whatnot. So their workforce actually doubled and went from like 1,500 to 4,000 employees last year. And I thought that was weird because if you guys have been thinking about how many companies have been laying off, why would OpenAI be hiring so many more? And the average compensation is 1.5 million. Total payroll is 6 billion. That's 46%. It's 46.2% of all revenues. right? We've talked about Oracle. We've talked about credit default swaps. You know, we've talked. This thing here is really good about the whole. You know, this thing here is really hilarious, where it's NVIDIA, AMD, OpenAI, Microsoft, CoreWeave, Intel, Oracle, right? Like this whole circle jerk, right? Hear me out. And we've seen how bad Oracle and CoreWeave credit default swaps, sort of specifically on Oracle, right? And how bad the stock has been. And them coming out in their earnings call talking about how bad revenues were and how much debt they were issuing and taking on, right? Let's just hear me out. Let's say this collapse. And part of it goes into how look at their financials, right? Cash on hand, right? They want to raise more, they want to go do an IPO. They're spending $1.68 for every dollar they earn. So they're taking like a 40% loss. If I'm doing that right in my head, I'm gonna have to calculate that. But 1.68 for every dollar earned. Sorry, they have to spend $1.6 for every $1 earned. That's like a 40% loss. Am I wrong? And then they're burning through so much cash, and yet things like Gemini and Claude are better than it. And I'm just thinking, like, how much debt and whatnot, and the slowing of demand, and how expensive it is to facilitate and fund these things, the energy grid that needs to be expanded, how much money has to go into that. I was really going to ham on this, just like reading through all that stuff, and it's like, at any point if we hit a recession, and some of these companies have to pull back money or cut employees or so spending, or people don't have enough money to spend on these services, or like, you know, this trade slows down, I was like, holy shit, I was like, OpenAI is gonna fucking implode, right? Like, and this isn't new news, like a lot of people know this, but so let's ask, when would OpenAI run out of money theoretically? Let's use Gemini Pro and figure this out. The deadline date would be mid-2027. And the danger zone is they must secure funding and avoid pausing operations early in 2026. So, just read this. They start with 14 billion, lose 17 billion this year. By Q4, they would be insolvent. They have a negative cash balance. And by quarter 2, 27, they'd be maxed out. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, the market is stalled out nearly an exact year before this calculation would kind of kick in, unless they raise or find more funding, whatever. And if you guys were reading through all the OpenAI docs over the weekend that were coming out with the lawsuits and whatnot, and former employees coming out, and whatever else was coming out this weekend, there's too much for me to cover. I'm sorry, I have to read your own. Otherwise, this video is gonna be fucking 4 hours long. And I was like, holy fuck! I was like, is this maybe why that, you know, the Nasdaq, for example, has started to look like my fucking left nutsacks after a nice fucking beautiful blonde blue-eyed woman sucked it dry, and it's just starting to fucking flop? Or like, you know, I mean, CoreWeave looks shit. Like let's go through all these stocks. Hold on, where are they? Yeah, CoreWeave looks dog shit. Oracle looks dog shit. NVIDIA looks dog shit. Right? Microsoft slowing down. Meta really slowing down. Apple slowing down. Amazon's kind of choppy, but I would say it's one of the stronger ones. Google, it's been good, but it's starting to outpace this. Right? I'm wondering if the rotation from some of these just goes back into old guard tech that still has solid funding, solid fundamentals, whatnot. And they're not fully levered on this AI trade like some of these other companies are. And again, I think there is a big correction coming. I don't know if it's quarter 1 where we just go to 0. And I'll be honest, I don't think quarter 1 we go to 0 right now. I don't think we go straight down immediately. We could Black Swan. But I think we definitely go through some issues and phases and arrests and debts and crimes. And I'm just thinking, like, again, like what if one of these companies pulls the plug on OpenAI, or one of them tips over from the dominoes, something like, and someone pulls out, or you know what I'm saying? Like, what if that happens, and the market's starting to price this in earlier? Because remember, the markets don't need a reason to go up. They're designed to go up. They just go up. They need a narrative to go down on. And a lot of the times, markets price things in before they happen. And I'm thinking that a really large reset could be in the photos. I really do. I really do. Remember, guys, it just takes one person to kick the can, and the show stops, and the music stops, and the dancing stops, right? And I'm curious to see where these bonds open up, too. If pissing off foreign countries and being rude to them, and I'll start this whole tariff trade again, and I'm waiting to see another China trade war headline, because they halted the NVIDIA H200 chips again, too. I mean, they weren't going to buy them in the first place. It's honestly a dog shit chip if you look at them. It's useless. You want something like Blackwell or like some of the newer stuff coming out that's better. And they've been smuggling all these in anyways and better and just upgrading them. So why would they go and just buy from NVIDIA? And NVIDIA has a lot of backstock on hand. But with all that backstock NVIDIA has on hand, why do they have that backstock and why is no one buying it or using it? And even though there's a memory shortage, so they have like an oversupply, there's a memory shortage, things are getting inflated in terms of value. What's going on here? You guys starting to see what I'm saying? Where it's like, I don't know. I don't know. And listen, the trend has not fully flipped yet. Okay, like it hasn't fully flipped yet. Like for it to fully flip, I'd really want to lose like the 50 EMA or something like that and really go down. But it's not far a fucking way. It's not far a fucking way. At all. It's not far away. And I think it's soon. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. Again, I'm looking at core 1 month vol. And I'm thinking that it's probably fucking soon. I really do. I think it's soon. Like I think it's a lot sooner than people are expecting. Like even global liquidity is starting to tilt down. Right? No matter how you look at it, you look at it from there or weekly starting to curve over or whatever. M2 is tilting down. It's starting to. So again, we might go through some consolidation or some downside. I think it's gonna be down. And I don't know. Again, you're just at that part of the cycle where Bitcoin's showing no, and Bitcoin always does this. It always does this, whether it's beforehand or right before capitulation happens. So we'll have to see what happens here. I don't know. I'm expecting at least a test of 6,800 this week, maybe 6,700. But I don't know. I don't know, man. I think that's all I gotta say.